This is my journey. Inspired one story at a time, a library of leaders was created. It began as a journey to learn. As time went on, it began to grow. All it needed was a platform, and this podcast was created. To listen, to inspire, to share. I am a storyteller, and this is my journey. Welcome to another episode of Profiles in Leadership. I'm your host, Steve Anderson, and today our guest is Dr. Leland McClusky. Lee is an orthopedic surgeon in Columbus, Georgia, where he practices at the St Francis Orthopaedic Institute. He is a clinical professor of surgery at Mercer University. Lee went to Vanderbilt University, Medical College of Georgia, and Tulane University for Orthopaedic Surgery Residency. After completing an orthopedic foot and ankle surgery fellowship at the Medical College of Wisconsin, Lee returned home to practice for over 30 years in his hometown of Columbus, Georgia. Lee has served for the past 20 years in many developing countries, educating and working with Samaritans Purse and Steps2Walk. He is currently the board chair for Steps2Walk and is on the Board of Councilors for the American Academy of Orthopaedic Surgeons. He has served as president of the Georgia Orthopaedic Society. Lee is married to Suzanne McCluskey and has 4 adult sons. So you're definitely not a girl dad. 4 sons.
No, and worry about that. I have one sister, and there are 3 boys in my family. And my sister is the glue that holds us together.
Yeah.
So I'm worried I don't have that.
Oh my gosh. Well, Lee, welcome to the program, and great to have you. And we've been talking about doing this a long time. I'm finally glad we got it on the calendar to do. So, why don't you just start and give us a little context? Interestingly enough, your father was a real pioneer in private practice physical therapy.
Yes.
And started in Columbus. So why don't you tell us a little bit about you growing up there in Columbus with your dad in that role, and tell us a little bit about him, and then we'll get into what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my dad was like a hero to me for sure, and in the physical therapy realm through that, and his relationship with Dr. Houston especially.
Yeah.
An orthopedist here, kind of one of the fathers of sports medicine. It certainly introduced me to orthopedics, so I got early exposure to that whole thing. But like you probably know of my dad, he was one of those unique people that people loved. He made people feel important and good. He could be with the poorest people or the most influential person, and they all felt like he cared about them the same way, and he did. He was genuine in that, and he just would always work harder than he was expecting anybody else to work around him. So I think people that were loyal to him and worked with him through the years, he would come alongside you as an employee, and kind of the epitome of servant leadership. Really, he would lift people up to do their best, and so he was a wonderful mentor and loving father. He's been gone a few years. We really miss him.
I'm sure you do. I remember, I've told the story before, but the first time I met him, I came in and he shook my hand, and he has that really slow kind of gentleman's southern drawl. And he said something to me, and I really didn't understand what he said. And I asked Patrick, who introduced us, and I said, what did he say? And Patrick says, he said that you got legs like Earl Campbell. And I said, oh, is that a good thing? He goes, oh, he loves Earl Campbell. That's got a kick.
That's a good story.
Oh my gosh.
I hear new stories all the time about him,
Yeah. So so tell us a little bit. He started, doing physical therapy work in the Houston clinic, and as for some of the younger people, maybe they haven't heard of Dr. Houston, but our generation, he was kind of the guy, So.
Yeah. Well, so my dad was a high school football coach, and Dr. Houston, this is 1940s. He was one of the early ones that was on the sideline with the team back then. And he's the one that influenced my dad to go to physical therapy school.
Hmm.
So I think at that time, Dad's options were he was engaged to my mother, who was an English teacher there. So I think it was between maybe Duke and Baylor were the two options he had. I don't know how many PT schools there were in the country.
Yeah, probably
And he
not
went,
that many. Yeah.
yeah, he went to Baylor, I think, because it was a full through quicker
Yeah.
through the summer or whatever. But and so he came back and he was in independent, practice his whole career.
Yeah.
But he worked right alongside with Dr. Houston and who was he was a real pioneer in orthopedics and sports medicine especially.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they worked together. Yeah.
So then, and he had four children, as you mentioned. You
Right.
have two other brothers and the youngest sister. So
Yes.
two of you became orthopedic surgeons. The third brother became the CEO of the company that he left, and
Right.
Susan is a pediatric physical therapist. So they kind of all
Exactly.
followed in his footsteps in a way.
Well, that's true. They say your children may not mind you, but they never fail to imitate you. So maybe that's part of it. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So, and then you went into orthopedic surgery. So, why did you choose that? And what was your journey towards that pursuit?
Yeah, Steve. Well, I got exposed to it, certainly at that time. Jimmy Andrews was in Columbus then too. And, some of these iconic people, you kind of, I think when you're at that stage, you picture yourself being able to do what you see somebody do, sort of like a mentoring thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I can remember just thinking that would be fun to do what these guys are doing. But so I went through medical school, tried to stay sort of open-minded to do other things, but orthopedics, maybe the familiarity of it or is part of it, but I settled on that for sure.
Yeah.
And
And then
been happy.
you kind of chose foot and ankle as your specialty within that practice as well, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's
Okay.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. And then you actually then joined the Houston clinic. Was that something you did right out of school, or did you do
Yeah.
something?
So
Okay.
no, I did. I did a foot and ankle fellowship after my orthopedic residency. And then I remember calling Dr. Houston had just asked me to come back to join the clinic when I finished. But, there was not like a paperwork trail or big contracts, all that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I was like thinking, well, he said I'm invited to come back, but I somehow need to confirm that. I can remember calling and it was like, yeah, just, you finish up in, July 31st, we'll see you August 1st, that kind of thing.
That's
So,
great.
but I came straight home. Yeah.
Okay, and then your brother was in the practice as well. So you both were orthopedic surgeons within that very esteemed uh, uh, sports clinic, basically.
That's right. We
Yeah,
did that for 10 years there and it was
yeah.
fun.
And what happened, if you don't mind me asking? Can you tell us? I
Oh,
mean, things were going along, seemed like pretty good, and then all of a sudden it wasn't. So what changed?
yeah. Well, there were a couple of different things going on. George and my brother, 2 years older than me, we had always sort of dreamed of doing our own small practice. And, you always think you can do things uh, better in some ways from what you see from the big group. And at that time, there was sort of the mantra was to get bigger. And I remember my dad always saying our goal is not to get bigger, but to get better.
Yeah, yeah,
It was sort of at that time where we sort of were trying to think of how we wanted to practice and be local and concerned some about the model of the way things were going. And some of it was just thought it would be fun to venture out on our own and do a smaller practice. And the timing sort of seemed they were about to change a lot of things about the model of how they practice to a cost-based system and some things like that were some worrisome to us. So we just decided to go for it. And
yeah.
uh, yeah, we did just practice together with a couple of other guys for 5 years. And then we became hospital based. We did that in 2006 and have been in that model since then. So I'm a hospital employee now. So I've been,
Oh,
been in a group with 45 orthopedists and down to 5. And then as a hospital based one now. So
Yeah.
I've seen all of the different models.
Really interesting. Now, when you left the Houston clinic, was Dr. Houston still there, or had he moved on by then?
Yeah, he was still there.
Okay.
He was not practicing anymore, but was still, in fact, it's a kind of a surreal story a little bit. The day that we were meeting to go with him to tell him that we were leaving, it was 9/11 that morning.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
And we sat there and watched that whole thing play out with him in front of a TV screen, with us coming in to tell him that we're thinking of leaving to do our own practice. So, and
Yeah.
he was
Yeah.
very gracious about it. He has sort of done the same thing himself, at an earlier stage, and we appreciated that about him.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So now you and your brother, working with a hospital now. And so, how is that different than being in your own practice that you have all those other concerns? Is it let you just totally focus on being a surgeon, and is that a good thing? And just tell me what your experience with that was.
Yeah, sure. Well, the probably the most fun was the time we were in just private practice together. It had the autonomy and made the decisions, had control of everything. But the hospital-based model has been really good for us, through the history of it, really. We could really focus on what we were doing, and all the employees, I think, had a better situation with their HR and those kind of things. And the they really, in the good days, it was like a honeymoon. We had all the things we asked for and that we needed, they supplied for us, and had the uh, efficient operating room, the physical therapy, the uh, my dad's legacy through that followed us over there, and we were able to work alongside them the whole time. So it was really nice to do that. And now, some of that honeymoon is over for sure. The
Yeah.
negative things of losing your autonomy, we're feeling that some now. And, there's good and bad to each model. I have really learned that. And
Yeah.
for me, part of what we probably will talk about, some of the, it's given me a little bit more opportunity to be gone more to do the overseas work.
Sure.
When you're on a cost-based accounting kind of a model,
Yeah.
it's pretty hard to be away.
Yeah, yeah,
And
and I'm
this
sure
way,
it's not easy, as we know, hospital systems seem to change their CEOs on a pretty regular basis.
well,
So
that's true.
you probably got to get used to new leadership all the time in that situation. So
That really is true.
yeah,
So, yeah,
and
it's not easy, but
then you said that the physical therapy company has continued on with your dad's legacy, and I did just hear just in the last couple of weeks that your youngest brother Brian retired from his position in that company.
that is true. That is
Yeah.
true. That
Yeah.
really happened. So,
So the younger brother
yeah,
retired before the two older brothers.
that is true. Boy, you, we're not sure we have it figured out. I used to say that I wouldn't quit, and I do love what I do, and I
Yeah.
can't imagine not doing it really. But I think to a fault, our identity gets caught up in what we do sometime. Uh, but now I can't say that I don't think about it retiring. I do.
Yeah, yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Well, let's get into the mission work. So when did you first decide that's something that was a calling for you, and how did it start? And just kind of tell us a little bit about what you do overseas.
Yeah, sure. Well, it really was not. I just had lunch here at this conference with some young physicians that are here asking about the calling. A lot of them are feeling like they even went to medical school knowing they wanted to do some of that work. And it was not that way for me. I went the first time in 2004, so I had been well, it was 20 years ago. I'd been practicing 10 years, and I came to a conference that with my wife that was called Prescription for Renewal. I thought it would be, just sort of a renewing, kind of a uplifting, restful respite weekend, but it was really sort of a recruiting for the
Hmm.
surgical needs overseas. So I went the first time. My wife and I both felt like heard a lot of the testimonies about the impact on the families that had done that together. and I have these 4 boys I mentioned. So I really went the first time thinking that it would be a good thing to go into a developing country and see how most of the world lives, and get that experience to get a bigger perspective on life, you know.
Yeah.
And it did happen, but I got hooked on it then. And there are a lot of stories that kind of validated for me that I needed to be doing that. But um, even the fact the first time that I went, there had been a bombing of the embassy there right before that, and some things happened that I almost didn't go. And I saw uh, a girl that was a track scholarship athlete at a college close to us. I saw her as a patient referred up, and she had an accent that was not from here. So I asked her where she was from, and it was Kenya, where I was going, and had promised to go. And she asked me where I was going. And I said it's a small 1,000 person kind of a community where there's a mission hospital called Kajabi, and you probably never heard of it. She said, "Well, my grandmother lives there."
Oh,
And
wow.
she showed me a picture of the little shamba, the garden her grandmother had. So I kind of felt like God had given me a little wink of to validate that
Yeah.
it was something I was supposed to do. So, but that's
Yeah.
really how that started.
And what do you see when you go there? I mean, I can only imagine, you see things that, gotta be tough to see, and just the access to any care at all that people don't have must be hard to deal with sometimes.
Yeah, there's a lot, we could talk about with the lack of access to safe surgical care in those developing countries, because I don't think people really realize the magnitude of that. But my personal experience has been that I went to this mission hospital. When I went at that time, there were no orthopedists in Kenya. There were no training programs, and it was, the general surgeons did any of the orthopedics that was done, and we would go and just sort of fill in for people and just work the whole time, just do cases and try to increase the capacity for that. And now at that hospital, for example, they had the first orthopedic residency program in Kenya. They have the guys I remember when they were students are the chair of the orthopedic department, and the Kenyans are leading the program. And some, Western influence, still comes for specialty teaching and things, but it's really progressed to that place like it should. And so
Yeah.
it's been really
Yeah.
sweet to see that in that place. But other places it's still just really sad how much lack of access to care there is.
So tell me, just give me a kind of a visual on it. So you come in and you're going to do your orthopedic surgery, and obviously there's a place to do it, but I'm just wondering, what's the level of cleanliness, and you got to worry about contamination and whatever. Do they have good setups, or do you bring some things with you? How do you make sure that you're working in a situation that at least you're somewhat used to, or do you just go the
Yeah.
way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on where you go. So, there's some in the bigger cities in those countries, even it's pretty westernized. They have, access. If you have enough money, you can get care in most of those big cities. But most of the care for 90% of the people that live in those countries that are in poverty, really abject poverty, they really don't have access to that. So these mission hospitals mainly have provided that. And some of them are, have good equipment. And most of the places, like just the example, I guess this year I went to Malawi to a hospital that has no orthopedics, but they have general surgeons doing some orthopedics. And they had no X-ray in the operating room, but they did have, some basic instruments, screws. We would use pins and things more than the hardware we use at home for a lot of things. Try to do things in a real simple way, um, and a good setup for follow up and things like that to make sure all of that was in place. But sometimes it's really basic where you go, and you are in a real I mean, I've been to places where we were in a tent operating, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But also other times it's, safe, nice, good infection rates are better than in the US even.
Really? Wow.
There are less, resistant organisms and things there too, so
Yeah.
there's
Yeah. Interesting. And so have you had an opportunity to see the fruits of your labor? Have you ever gone back and see somebody that you did surgery on, years before and how it changed their life?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're trying to work really hard in these two groups that I work in to really make sure we're collecting follow up and, really see what kind of impact that you're doing are having and what things are really working out well or not. So nowadays with the internet, it's pretty easy to, to get follow up on things that it used to be harder to. A lot of times, people have a hard time coming back to the hospital for follow up even, but with cell phones and things, you can really get the follow up more than we used to. We're trying really hard to study the impact and make sure that what we're doing is, is safe and, there's a huge impact on, with orthopedics. If you have a disability, you can't work, so your whole family suffers for it. And sometimes the whole community suffers because they hold you up. So it can make a huge, just something as simple as, somebody with a femur fracture from a motorcycle accident. There are all those cheap motorcycles all over the world now,
Yeah.
has increased the trauma a lot.
Yeah.
So if you have a femur fracture, if you can just teach those guys how to rod the femur and fix that, and they can get back to functioning, it makes a huge impact on what the World Health Organization calls the burden of disease, how
Yeah.
they measure those things, with your education work. If you're young and you are disabled, you can't go to school, and if you're older, you can't work. So
Yeah.
those things that they measure are impacted a lot by the simple things that we do.
So when you're over in these countries and you're doing your surgery, it's not just to do as many surgeries as you can. You're actually educating and teaching the local surgeons there as well.
That's right. That's the part that excites me the most. That's the exponential impact that it can have is if you can help teach and get programs established, that are teaching programs, that really increases that capacity the most.
Yeah. So of all the hundreds, perhaps thousands of people that you've done surgery on in these third world countries, share with us a story. Which one comes to mind, and what was that person like, and what did you come into, and then how did they do afterwards?
Oh, okay. Well, gosh, I can think of so many things. Probably the most heart-wrenching things the time that pops in my mind when you ask that is during the Mosul crisis with ISIS and Iraq in 2017 when all that was going on. I was in a field hospital there with Samaritans Purse and just taking care of a lot of children and especially the children. Those are the ones that come to my mind when you ask that question.
Mhm.
And we saw, just so many sad things with that, some of the follow-up on some of those little kids that survived some of that I learned later is there are a lot of stories about that time I can think of. But most recent, say in Malawi, I was there a few months ago. There was a little 15-year-old kid that had a femur fracture, and it happened to him. I think a wall fell on him, and some structure. I think it was his house. Something had happened, but he had a femur fracture that had happened a while back, and it never healed, so he couldn't walk. And his family was, trying to seek out some way to get help. And I remember he had traveled from a long ways to get there and all that. And it was kind of a easy one for us, uh, just with the way he's young and healthy. And it was kind of he's small, skinny little guy that was easy to do the operation, but to see him walk out of the hospital and happy and have gotten follow up, he's back in school and all that stuff. He's the
Yeah.
most recent one that comes to my mind.
Wow, that's got to be so rewarding to just know that, you're having an impact on people. And I'm sure with the numbers that need help, it probably seems overwhelming. But man, you gotta when you put your head on the pillow at night, it's got to feel good. You made such a
Yeah,
change in somebody's life.
yeah, it does. Yeah,
Yeah.
that part of it is fun.
Yeah. Now you've taken your sons, I think, with you before, and I know you take some of your nieces and nephews on some of these trips. Tell us
Yeah,
about that experience and then what they see and how it affects them.
yeah, sure. Well, like I say, one of the things to begin with that made me want to go was for them, for my kids. And so what we used to do for about 10 years, every summer when school would let out, we would leave as soon as we could before all the stuff with summer would start and go to Kenya for a month. It's such a long way to go. You almost had to go for that long to make it, to really make it where you're in the rhythm of it all. So they all the kids went there. They would do when they got old enough. They would come scrub and help in the operating room and do things at the hospital. Maybe when you're 14 or 15 or so, you could
Wow.
even do that.
Yeah, yeah.
Then, but even before that, they would go to the primary school and help, you know, teach and just be around the kids there and all that. So, I think they got the exposure to. Sometime I think I overexposed them to some things.
Well, I'm sure with different personalities, I'm sure some would do fine with what they saw, and others might just yeah, yeah.
Like Freeman, my second son, he speaks French, so he's been to a couple of French speaking countries and as a translator helped, and
Yeah.
Leland, he and I have done a couple of disaster relief things and been, it's been different with each of them differently, but honestly, some of what I've shared with the nieces and nephews the most has also been there's a children's home that we've been a part of, not related to medicine, and we've done trips out of the church I go to with a lot of them.
Uh-huh.
Like Patrick's two girls have been with us on those trips. So
Yeah.
just sharing the experience of being in a developing country, even in a way away from medicine, is a lot to learn.
Yeah, that's great. Now, a couple of your sons have followed you in the field of medicine. Is that right?
That's true.
Yeah.
The oldest is an orthopedist in New Orleans, and the second one is a urology resident, and
Okay.
the third one's a mental health counselor, and my youngest, Miles, is a lawyer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, that is something to be proud of for sure.
yeah, sure.
Yeah. So now I understand too that from my deep intel that I did for this interview that you actually went to Haiti right after the earthquake and really had a big impact on you. So tell us a little bit about what happened there and what you saw and what you
Oh,
did.
okay. Yeah, so these trips we have talked about have been more of a planned, plan to be out and do a short-term trip to help somewhere. But Samaritans Purse has started doing they call it a DART team, a disaster assistance relief team. And they will go do, nationally around the US during some of these natural disaster things that happen. And then overseas, the time orthopedists get invited to that is on an earthquake mainly.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
in Haiti with the big earthquake, you remember that killed what, 325,000 people or something like that.
Amazing.
They
Yeah.
had a response to that a few days after that happened. And so I had a relationship with them through these other trips that I did. So that's how I got the call to do that. But so we that had a huge impact on us and even on their organization. I wish I could have time to tell you what all they do with that now because it's now they have a big ability to respond in a big way. But back then, a team of us went, and they had a place that they had a relationship with. They would send doctors to, and so we had a place that we could go and start to work pretty quick. One of the quickest. We had the safest functioning operating room in Haiti after the earthquake. There were a couple of field hospitals that were set up quickly, but so we were just really busy, saw all the death and unorganized chaos that it was at first, and just did a whole lot of work there for a couple of weeks, and then they stayed there 6 months after that. Samaritans Purse did. I went back 2 or 3 times after that to do follow up and do some more work, but it had a really big impact on me for sure. Just I had not experienced that kind of a catastrophe before, and it was really
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
How do you I don't know how to ask this question, but how do you deal with it? I mean, it's kind of like I would imagine that sometimes you might question humanity or question your faith or
Yeah.
question all kinds of things like how can this stuff happen? But
Oh, I
it
know.
does. Yeah.
Yeah. David Jeremiah was here this morning talking at a meeting I was at about things you learn from adversity and a crisis, and that's really when you grow, when you go through hard things. So that was certainly my experience in that setting and some others like it. You ask a lot of the hard questions, and uh, like they will say, you can't really have full faith and full understanding of some things till you get yourself out of it more, and you see where you have to rely on that faith to even survive what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how you really, when you trust and get in those situations where you really see your integrity or character or lack of. So
Yeah.
I've learned a lot about myself through some of those
Well,
kind of
I can
settings.
imagine, and the next thing that comes to mind is it's pretty, easy to maybe visualize or to know what, when you're there and doing it, you're making such a difference, and it's, you feel like you're doing it, but are doing good things for the world. But when you come back to Columbus and you go back to your regular orthopedic practice, how do you approach that with what you've seen and learned, and how does it help you do what you do in Columbus?
Yeah, that's a good question because for one thing, just seeing the poverty in those developing countries, it makes you come back home and you can see it in your backyard more easily. Like you know, there's a little saying that you can look at something and look away, but you can't really see something and see away.
Yeah.
And once
Yeah.
you really learn to see things, you see it all around you. And so it's made us more sensitive to the needs around our neighbors at home also, just from being in those extreme environments. So that's one part of it. And then, professionally, when you come home and you have been working with no electricity, no X-rays, all that stuff, boy, you never would complain again about drill bit being dull or something.
Yeah, I can only
So it,
imagine.
it definitely changes your attitude. But I have to confess, you're when you come back, you're changed in a good way for about 2 weeks. Then you get back to your old ways again pretty quick. Human nature takes back over.
Yeah, yeah,
I
I'll
don't
bet.
want you to think I'm a saint at home when I come back because it doesn't last too long.
So, how long have you been an orthopedic surgeon now? How many years?
34 years.
Okay, and have you ever counted up how many orthopedic surgeries that you've done over your career?
I really haven't, but usually I think it's 600 or 700 a year or something like that.
Yeah, and just do the
Um,
math. That's opening up a lot of people.
yeah,
So,
yeah, that's
yeah,
true.
that's and I
Some
would
of
have.
some of the same ones more than one time.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And so do you see the new generation of orthopedic surgeons seeing what you saw and coming to support these organizations and being willing to help, or is it a different generation that looks at it differently?
Yeah, it's definitely different. For one thing, a lot of these hospitals that I've been to all these times, these older guys are kind of timing out and retiring or having to leave, and there's not many people replacing them. So some of these organizations have been real proactive trying to figure out how to get people that may have that calling to do that, to be able to go quicker. And for example, they have a program called the post-resident support program. So like if you finish your orthopedic residency and you think you would like to do that work, they will help you, uh, will pay you for the first 2 years that you go, so that you don't get stuck having to raise your own funds at home. And then, like I tell people, once you join the country club, you can never go back.
Yeah,
So anyway, there've been some things like that that people are trying to do to help people go. The positive side of it is I think that generation that's coming through now, they have more of a global awareness than we had.
yeah,
And it's not just my boys, certainly I feel like that way, but just all of them do, with I guess the information they have the ability to see. So that saying that you can't care about something that you don't know about, there's
yeah,
truth in that. I feel like I was just not even aware of some of the needs and the state of living conditions and things that a lot of people in the world had. And I think our kids do understand that more than we did. So they really have an understanding better than we did, but it's just harder to go than it used to be in some ways,
yeah,
safety wise,
yeah.
logistics wise, and I guess other reasons. But
And I would assume too that, when you're if you are interested in honing your skills and becoming better and better at what you do, that those kind of experiences without all the bells and whistles and thinking on your feet and having to do things in
yeah,
different ways probably in the long run make you a better surgeon.
no doubt, like in Malawi, I just being there, there's no x-ray in the operating room. So some of the guys coming and just finishing now, they feel paralyzed if they don't have the C-arm, and,
Yeah,
never have done a case having to open some things and not have that ability, so, and the equipment too, a lot of the things that make it easy for us at home, you don't have that there. So you have to go back to the way we did things 30 years ago at home.
yeah,
So sometimes it's more difficult that way. People are just not comfortable to go until that's why it's kind of nice to go. These teaching programs, someone just at a meeting I was just at was making the point, when you do go, sort of like shame on you if you don't take somebody with you to get some experience, because it's an opportunity to share that with other people. Some of the younger people, mentoring is really important. I'm sure you've seen
absolutely.
that in your business, and you're doing a
Yeah,
lot of that now, I know.
yeah,
But I think that's really important, because once people go, once you go and really see it, you feel more comfortable that you can make an impact. You're able to do what would make a difference.
yeah,
But it's
yeah.
kind of daunting if you just see the x-rays of these crazy cases they have and think you're supposed to go over there and take care of it.
Yeah, I can
But,
imagine. So I know you to be a pretty humble guy, so I'm gonna make you uncomfortable here, but
I
share with us. I know you've received some humanitarian awards and some things for your work. So just share us, how you've been acknowledged for the great philanthropy and humanitarian work that you do.
well, I think humility is a trait that I wish I had if I don't have it, because it's I think I've learned I think that love and humility are the two things that is just about all that should make the world go round if we had those two things more. And one of the sayings that I remember somebody saying was, you know, if you any thought that one person is more important than another is the root of all evil in the world, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, to answer your question, there are a couple of our Orthopedic Society in Georgia has a humanitarian award that somebody had nominated me for, so I did receive that. I appreciated that, and have had a few things like that people that love me have made the nominations for me to receive
Yeah.
those probably.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yes, it's affirming to be recognized, you know, for that. But it is that my heroes and all of this are people that have these long-term commitments that live in some of these hard places. It's easy to go knowing you're coming home in a few weeks, you know, but
yeah.
and raise your family in these settings and all and be there long term. Those are the real heroes to me.
So with his experiences, around the globe and also with what you do at home, what do you think needs to change? This is a big question. What do you think needs to change in healthcare today for you to just, do your job better?
Oh wow. Well, you know, it's always getting back to the basics of you know, what's so beautiful about the healthcare field, because by the nature of it, we're serving people and helping people, and you know, the golden rule, you know, loving God and then love your neighbor, love others. Uh, you know, to be able to serve others in what we do is what's fun about it and rewarding about it. And these overseas experiences are like 100% that,
Yeah.
with all of the negative part outside of it. So I am a big believer in trying to get people exposed to, you know, to those kind of experiences. You know, here in the U.S. and some of the inner city things that are happening, you know, there are ways to volunteer and be involved with a lot of things like that. And then, of course, medicine is really one of the few things that you can get exposure to some of the countries that are hard to go otherwise and to see. You know, it's a vehicle to be able to share what we have the gifts to be able to do for people. And therapy is that way in a big way, by the way. You know, physical therapy has huge impact on the teams that I've been on recently. And even Haiti, you mentioned that physical therapist went with us 6 weeks when we went back to Haiti,
Yeah.
and half of the patients that we operated on were still in the bed and
Oh
had
gosh.
not even been doing any, you know, a lot of things. We were treating a lot of, you know, a lot of fractures with traction and things too, you know, but that guy made the biggest impact. John Patrick was his name, but he made the biggest impact on that team of anybody that was on our team for sure.
Yeah. No, that's
Uh,
great. That's
but,
great. Yeah.
you know, so I guess to expose people more to the good parts of what we do and at least focus on that. I think there needs to be a lot more mentoring. I think in the training programs, especially, you know, there should be a lot more care to that. All of the burnout and, you know, some of the problems that you're aware of, you know, in medicine, the surgeons are at the highest level of that suicide rate, and burnout and things like that. So there's a little mental health side to it that needs to be understood and give people avenues to be healthier with. The wholeness, you know, more of a holistic approach to what we do is really important, you know, to really see the patient, not the diagnosis, like, you know, and it's a lot more fun if you spend more time with patients and can really learn things about them and uh, develop relationships more. So, you know, the whole way we get pushed to try to do too much volume and uh, I heard Charles Stanley say one time, everybody cheats somebody, and you end up overworking. There's only 24 hours in a day. There are these margins to stay healthy, some minimums, some maximums, but I think we get pushed to the limit of that, and
Yeah,
the people
absolutely.
you cheat are it's the question of who do you cheat? It's the ones that love you the most and will let you get away with it, which is
Yeah.
your family.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Oh, I think there's some things like that that need to be changed, and give people a chance to, be a little bit more, living a more holistic way of not making our whole life be about work.
Yeah, for sure. So, with that, a perfect segue. I'm not going to ask you for a date by any means, but as you get into your more senior years of your life, what does it look like to you? I mean, do you just work less? Do you quit all at once, or do you keep doing what you're doing internationally? What do you think your future looks like in that area?
Yes, that's the thing I think about more than I used to. Yeah, at in the models that we have for working at home, it's kind of hard to work part-time. I guess part of it's the just all of the HR part to it, to
Yeah.
if you're working, you need to be putting in the whole time. But so I think it's a little bit hard to do that. My ideal world would be to work less here and do more time overseas. And I think I've wrestled a little bit from what I've seen on whether if I quit practicing here, quit operating here, especially, um, to do that work over there that's more difficult than here. It's a little bit hard to retire from your practice and then just go and do the time over there as in surgery. You can do it with teaching. So I do sort of see myself transitioning to do more time on these trips and teach more and still, but I'm not sure about that because I've seen some people, you kind of lose your edge a little bit when you quit, when you stop
Hmm.
doing it full time. And
Yeah.
I've seen people that, will have a saying that you have to be in control of the surgery you're doing, and if you get to where it's sort of controlling you and you kind of lose the edge about it, you just get in trouble, and
Yeah.
I don't want that to happen.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
but I think I'll try to walk that line of staying working here but some less and do more overseas stuff.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
that's a blessing. So, thank you for that. In anticipation of our discussion today, was there anything that I haven't asked or haven't covered that you want to be sure and get in the show today?
Well, not really. Anytime I get a chance to explain this to people, I do it though. One is the lack of access to safe, affordable surgery and healthcare in the developing world is astonishing. The burden of disease is a way that the World Health Organization measures, different disease processes, and that lack of surgical care has a higher impact than HIV, TB, and malaria all combined. So you can picture, I was just in a meeting where they were giving the statistics in the Middle East, in a country I've been to, the lack of access to safe health care. 30% of women that have babies, either the mom dies or the baby dies less than a year out. And it's all because of no access to a C-section if they need it, no perinatal care, So all of that's it's just a bigger impact than what most people realize. And the quartet of the vulnerable, they say, that's talked about certainly in the Bible. And I'm a man of faith, so I have that backdrop. But in other secular ways, it's measured too. The poor, the widows, the orphans, or the people that with the least means to get help, and the sojourners, and I would add the disabled, that group of people don't have resources like they have in the United States, where there are safety nets built in place. And I think just for people to have that awareness of that, it's kind of hard until you go see it to really, really understand it. But I would just mention that to people.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Well, Lee, at this point in the interview, I always ask my guests the same common question. So that question is, in relation to leadership, what is a pearl of wisdom that you could leave us with today?
Mm. Well, in Columbus, where I'm from, Columbus, Georgia, there's good teaching and mentoring that I've had on the whole idea of servant leadership. So I'm a real big believer in that, and my faith also teaches that the least of these will be the greatest. So the servant model, leadership model, where normally the triangle is the head guy at the top, and everybody below is sending up the pyramid. And the servant leadership model, it's flipped, where the CEO of the company is trying to support the people to do their job better, and that person supporting the ones that work under them in a way that they can do their job better. So it's sort of flipping the pyramid, where if you have a servant's attitude about treating people the right way, and some simple things that go along with that, that's the way that it functions best, the way we're designed to live. And I guess that's one that I would mention. And the other one, being here at this Samaritans Purse event, they have a saying here that the quality of our work is the platform of our witness. And I think to do things in a quality way, and leadership wise, promoting that concept of doing everything that you can do the best of your ability, and that whole theme of is really important. I've really appreciated people that lead others and by example, and learn by that principle.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. And this has been a great interview. Thanks for your time today. And as people may know, Patrick and Susan Graham are real good friends of mine. And of course, Susan's your younger sister. And so it's just really great that we got our time together. And the times I have had exposure to your family has just been so warm and welcoming. And you got a big family, so it's great to feel that warmth. And
Oh, I appreciate
thanks
that.
for all you do in the world. I mean, you really are doing God's work, and you're a gift to the planet. So
Well,
keep
thank
doing
you.
what you're doing, and it's just been a real pleasure talking with you today.
Well, thank you. And my family loves you, by the way. Thank you for what you do.
Yeah, well, it's great talking to you, and thanks for saying that. Lee, have a great rest of your day, and
Okay.
thanks for being on the program. Appreciate
Hey,
it.
man. Bye
Okay,
bye.
take care. Bye bye. Thank you for listening to another episode of Profiles in Leadership. To listen to all my interviews, subscribe to Profiles in Leadership with Steve Anderson on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, and many other popular podcast platforms. Some of these interviews are on video, and you can search YouTube for Profiles in Leadership with Steve Anderson. You can also access the entire library of interviews on my website, orange.coaching.com, and that is orangetheword.coaching.com, and go to the Media Center and click on Podcasts or Video Gallery. You can also enter the website from pilpodcast.com.